Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is Charlene for some of you lot who I've not met before, and welcome to the ZPI meeting. And the ZPI group was started a little over a year ago, so probably coming up close to 18 months now, and started as a community of Zimbabweans to begin with, actually, who were interested in property and property being used as a vehicle to accelerate them in the future, to achieve like financial freedom and more of another source of income, because we all know that we can't rely on just one source of income to be able to sustain us, because you never know what's coming around the corner. And like I said, because of the name ZPI, everyone assumes that it's just Zimbabweans, but as the group has grown, it has moved from just being Zimbabweans, but obviously the founders are Zimbabwean, so the name still sticks as ZPI, Zimbabwe Property Investors. And every month we have a guest speaker who speaks to us about different aspects of growing our businesses. And today we are joined by Tiffany, and she will be talking to us about branding. So please ask her as many questions as you can possibly ask her in the time that we have, because it might be useful. It's not necessarily just property related, but it can help you in any business that you are going to be embarking on. And also just a little bit of housekeeping. If you can try and keep your mic muted so that there's no sort of background noise or anything like that. And if you've got any questions, if you pop them in the comments box, in the chat box, and I'll be able to keep an eye on those and ask them sort of at the end. Or if you would like to ask your question yourself, because sometimes it's difficult to explain it, you can just raise your hand and then we'll be able to ask the questions. So without wasting any more of your time, because I don't want you to lose out on the valuable stuff that is going to be happening, I am going to pass it over to Tiffany.
Hey guys, I hope you're all having a great evening today. Thank you for the intro, Charlene. I'm going to share my screen quickly so that you guys can see my presentation. So today, as Charlene said, we'll be talking about branding, and I really want to talk about the value of building your brand. So the title of my presentation today will be Stop Leaving Money on the Table, and we'll get into a little bit more of what that means as we go throughout the presentation. But essentially my goal here is to help everyone understand how much of an impact building a brand can really have on your business. And I also want you to know that throughout this, I'll be speaking mainly about business branding, but if you have a personal brand or are looking to build a personal brand, these principles will apply too. So before we get into everything, just a quick introduction. I am Tiffany, as Charlene just mentioned, and I'll be running today's session. I'm the founder and managing director of a company called Fem Co, and I specialize in brand strategy and building brand strategies. So essentially, I'm a brand coach and consultant, and that is what I do full time. I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and my goal, I'm dedicated essentially to helping other entrepreneurs like yourselves to build their brands. I started my business because I knew that so many businesses could be much more successful if they focused on building really strong brands. And so that is my mission, to create brands that really help to build success. A little bit about my business. It is called Fem Co, and we are a branding agency. We've been running for a little over a year now. And what we like to do is really combine strategic thinking, storytelling, and creative direction to help primarily women build their brands. So our approach is very much centered on understanding audiences and really making sure that we build brands that align with target audiences and create strong relationships. So that's everything about me. And I just wanted to go through today's agenda, and just give you a quick overview of what we will be covering. So my goal for this session is to give you guys all of the tools that you need to build your brand. And essentially, to do that, what we'll do is talk about what a brand really is and what the term means. So giving you guys a really good understanding of that. We'll also talk about whether you're leaving money on the table. And this is essentially kind of figuring out what the purpose is of a brand and how it will help you and your business grow and make more money. And then I'll go into the final part of my talk, which will be a little bit more practical. I'm going to be talking about ways in which you can build your brand and giving you kind of practical tips on how to start your brand building journey. And finally, we'll go through some Q&A. So as Charlene said, drop any questions into the chat box and I will answer those at the end of the talk. Before we get into everything, I just wanted to do a quick group check-in, find out who I'm speaking to today, find out a little bit more about you and your business. So if you could tell me your name, your business name or niche in the chat, so what strategy you use in property, if that's what you do, and also how you're feeling today within emojis. So there's a little tutorial on how to do that if you're on Mac or PC, or if you're on your phone, then that's really easy. So let me know how you guys are doing today. I'll do the same in the chat. Guys, I see so many people in here, but no one is responding with their emojis. Let me know how you guys are feeling.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi. Oh, sorry, I can't see who's speaking. I'm sorry.
Shelly.
Hi, Shelly. How are you?
I'm good, yes. I just registered a business, but I don't have a business, Tiffany.
Okay.
Yes. I just wanted to have a business, but
okay.
I did it. But now I'm in property. My property is in Coventry. It's managed with Musi. I have only one. First time I started two, but I couldn't manage. So now I have only one. I'm looking something here in Glasgow. I'm in Glasgow.
Okay.
Yes, so that I can start to manage myself. Then I can put up my company name up there.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelly. Thank you for letting us know and for sharing.
Thank you.
Starting to see some responses in the chat. Michelle said she's not yet in business, still starting. This is a great time to be a part of this talk, by the way. It gives you all the things that you need to get started in building your brand. We've got Mugo, who's a property investor, like the cool shades emoji. Carol has a smiley face, great. Charlene at Love Letter Love. Callista is an architect, amazing. We've got Candy and Charlie, they're property investors and they're consultants, feeling great. Hey, Pauline. These are amazing. Thank you guys. Thank you for sharing. We've got architectural contractor, health and safety consultant, property investor, surveyor part-time. Gosh, you guys are doing a lot. This is amazing. Tendai has a small business to sell sim and essay goodies. Gotta hit you up for those. Plan to invest in property. And Carol's a property investor specializing in SA. Amazing. So a lot of my examples today will be property related, but this chat is very much, this talk, sorry, is very much just business related in general. So it can be applied to any form of business. It's not just property. And if you have any questions on a different type of business, I'll be happy to answer those. So let's get right into it. If you guys take nothing else from what I say today, if you don't remember a single word that I say, I just want you to remember this statement right here. And that is, without a strong brand, your chances of success are capped. So this is my key message and one thing that I really want you guys to remember. And I want you all to understand the true impact that building a brand has. So it's not by accident that some of the world's most successful companies like Amazon and Nike and Netflix have a really strong brand. And because of their strong brand, they are known for something in particular. So some quick examples, we have got Nike, which is a sports lifestyle brand, and they are very much known for motivation. So for motivating people to have that really healthy lifestyle and to really take care of themselves. We've got Ferrari, which is a brand very much associated with speed. We've got Disney, which is a brand that is kind of known for creating really joyful and happy experiences for their audiences. We've got Red Bull, which is a brand known for adrenaline and everything to do with daredevils. And then finally, we've got Hermes, which is the handbag company, not the delivery company, but they are very much known for their prestige and their prestigious nature. So one thing that I want you to notice here, guys, is that all of these are emotions. So the reason that these brands are so strong is because they make people feel something. So very much when it comes to branding, emotion is a very key aspect. So I want to debunk our first myth, which is one that a lot of people believe, and that is your brand is just a logo and visuals. So this definitely isn't the case. And I think based on our previous examples that I put up here, we know that brand has to be much deeper than kind of the logos, the colors, the typography that you see. It's very much about what you make people feel, what your core message is. So I like to use this analogy, and I know that you guys, the majority of you guys are property experts, so it might not work quite as well, but I'm going to go through it anyway. So I like to ask the question to a lot of my audiences that if I asked you to build a skyscraper, in which direction would you start building? For the most part, people say up, but that is definitely not the case. In order to build a skyscraper, and a successful skyscraper is to dig down first. So you need to dig down in order to create really strong foundations for your building, and then you can start to build up. So what this means is that when you build your strong foundations, then you have a really strong place to start in order to make sure that your skyscraper is steady and to make sure that it's a strong structure. So this same principle goes for building your brand. So the really successful brands that you see are not just made up of their visuals and logo in terms of the expression that you see of the brand, but they are very much made up of really strong foundations. And that's about understanding what their core message is, what they stand for, and how they kind of convey that to the world. And so with this, I have a definition of brands that I like to kind of share with you guys. So this is actually a definition by Martin Neumeyer, and it's that a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, organization, or a person. So notice here that we don't really talk about the visuals of a brand. We're not talking about logos. We're not talking about websites. We're actually talking about emotions. So what I really want you guys to understand is that when you are building your brand, the emotion that goes into it and the message that you give out to the world is really what matters. And that's what will make people connect to you. So having an emotion related to your brand will really help you to build those strong foundations. And I'm going to teach you how to kind of do that today. So to understand brand a little bit further, there are two kind of key overarching concepts. The first one is brand strategy, and this is what I specialize in and what I'll be primarily talking you guys through today. So when you're building your brand, you need a strategy, and a strategy is a plan that determines who you are, who you're speaking to, how you're speaking to them, and exactly what you're saying. So this is what we go over first in order to build a really strong brand. And this is essentially where your brand foundation goes. This is what we like to call digging down. And that's what goes into creating those really solid foundations to then build up. So when we're building up, we're talking about things like brand expression. So brand expression is the message that the audience receives about your product, your service, or your company, or as a person if you are building a personal brand. So this is where your visuals kind of sit, but a lot more goes into expression, which I'm going to talk you through right now. So a quick overview of what strategy includes and some of the things that we're going to be going over today. So your brand strategy first starts with your foundation. So within this, we're talking about your purpose, we're talking about your vision, we're talking about your mission, we're talking about your values. If you guys are a part of the book club that ZPI does, we read a book called Start With Why. And that very much was kind of talking about the foundations that need to go into your business. And these principles very much apply to building your brand as well. We always start with why. We're looking at purpose and your overarching vision for your brand. Within strategy, we'll also look at brand positioning. So here we really want to understand who your audience is. We want to know who you're speaking to. And we also want to understand the market. We want to look at your competitors and how we can differentiate from them and make sure that we're standing out. Once we have a really strong strategy, we can start to build on brand expression. So we're looking at things like brand persona. We want to create a personality for your brand that's recognizable in the same way that these really successful brands have done. We also want to create a brand voice that is really helpful in terms of communicating really well with your audience. Beyond persona, we're looking at communication. So we're looking at what your brand has to say and to share with the world. We're looking at your brand story, what message you are portraying to the world, and also things like your name and your tagline. And then finally, in expression, we look at your brand visuals. So this is your logo, your brand identity, whatever brand colors you've chosen. We also look at your brand presence. So this can be physical presence, things like your business cards and other branding collateral, or it can be digital presence. So things like your website and so on and so forth. So I really want you guys to understand the purpose of a brand and why I do what I do. And one of the key things about your brand is that it really helps you to retain customers. So a fact that I like to tell people is that acquiring a new customer can cost 5 times more than retaining an existing customer. So essentially going out and finding new customers is much more expensive than nurturing and retaining the ones that you have already. So without a strong brand and loyal customers, you're kind of forced into a game of acquisition. You're forced into finding, nurturing, and selling to new customers. And this is time consuming and costly for you because it costs a lot more in marketing to those customers than it does in the return that they're going to give you. So you won't get a good return on investment, which means that we should be focusing a lot more on retaining customers. And in order to do this, we need to build a really strong brand. So to talk you through kind of the key purposes of building a brand. First up, we have recognition. And this is ensuring that people will be able to identify your brand based on your identity, your products, or your services. So if I were to show you guys this section of logo right here, would you be able to tell me what brand this is? Anyone can unmute or you can type it in the chat, whichever is easier for you guys. We've got a half Nike, great. Amazing. Yes, you guys are all correct. This is very much Nike's logo. And this just shows you the power of recognition. Once you have like a really strong brand, people are able to recognize you and your brand, and they are able to choose you over other brands. So for example, if I were to show you 2 shoes, one is very regular, it doesn't have any recognizable qualities, and I show you a shoe with this swoosh and this logo on it, you'll be able to recognize that it's Nike, and you're much more likely to choose the brand that you recognize, because as people, we like familiarity, we like something that we can trust, we like something that we know. So recognition is very much one of the key purposes of building your brand, because we want people to choose you because they know you. Secondly, we have connection. So this is how your audience resonates with your message and relates to it and what you are offering. So if you want to be motivated, you're more likely going to seek out Nike as a brand. If you want to seem prestigious, you're more likely going to seek out Hermes as a brand. And this is because of the message that they are offering. You connect to that message, and that's why you choose them over other brands. So when we are building your brand, what we want to make sure is that we create a really strong basis for connection, and that we are creating a message that your audience really resonates with and wants to be a part of. Third up, we have differentiation. So creating a really strong brand allows you to stand out from all of the other competitors in the market. I'm sure you guys know in property, there is a lot of competition. If you can differentiate from that competition and appear different or better to your audience, then they are much more likely to choose you. And again, that works very much in your favor. And then finally, we have loyalty. So the purpose of building a brand, one of the most important purposes of building your brand, is brand loyalty. So this is when your audience is invested in your brand and chooses you over any other brand. The really amazing thing about creating loyalty with your customers is that they are likely to choose you even when it doesn't make sense. So if we go back to that shoe analogy that I just gave you, this unrecognizable shoe, it could be £15, it's very cheap, it looks sturdy, but I know nothing about the brand. If I see a brand with the Nike swoosh on it, it costs £60, it's much more expensive, but I have a connection with this brand, I recognize this brand, I have built trust with them over time, I'm much more loyal to this brand, and I will choose it even though it's much more expensive and it might be a little bit more inconvenient for me. That's what loyalty looks like. So that's people choosing your brand time and time again. So with the idea of loyalty in mind, I would like you guys to name a brand that you are very much loyal to, a brand that you would never cheat on, in the chat again, or you can shout it out, that's absolutely fine. Tailor says Apple, I 100% agree. I have a MacBook right now, my notes are on an iPad, my iPhone is right here. I would never cheat on Apple through and through. Are there any kind of other brands that you guys would never cheat on? We've got another Apple, great, it's amazing. Gymshark, I do love a good Gymshark legging. They are great. I think I'm pretty loyal to Gymshark as well, actually, when it comes to leggings, especially. Then we have any other brands? Coca-Cola. Oh, that's an interesting one. Is this Coca-Cola the brand or Coca-Cola the actual drink? Carica. I don't think I've heard of that one. Levi's. Nice. So what I want you to think about when you are telling me which brands that you would never cheat on is just think about the connection that these brands have managed to build with you, that level of trust that they've managed to get you to in terms of you never wanting to cheat on them ever again. That is very much what it takes to build a brand. And these companies have spent a long time being intentional about their brand message and their brand core in order to get you to feel the way that you do about them. And Charlene says Fitbit, Boston, Sorrells, and Levi's. Amazing. So these brands have really taken the time to understand you as an audience member and make sure that they tailor their brand message to you so that they can build that level of loyalty that you are exhibiting right now. And I'm going to talk you through kind of the key principles that you need to put into place for your brand so that when I ask a different room of people, you know, what brand they'll never cheat on, they tell me your brand name. So I'm going to help you to kind of put together your brand foundations throughout this presentation. And then we can start to build really strong brands that breed loyalty within your audience. So with that in mind, it's time to start building your brand. So because I was primarily talking about property, I have come up with the 6 P's of branding your business, and hopefully this will help you to remember it. So I'm going to go through each of these sections really quickly, and then like I said earlier, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and I'll be able to answer them towards the end. So first up in the 6 P's of branding is problem. So we need to understand what problem we are trying to solve, and the person with the problem is our target audience. So we need to ask ourselves, what is our target audience struggling with? The really important thing here is to actually talk to your target audience. So we've got some tasks here in the corner, and there'll be a task for each section. But what I want you guys to do is to go out and talk to your target audience, really understand what it is they are struggling with, understand why they are experiencing the problems that they're experiencing, and also ask them what they believe would be a solution. So you can start to tailor your solution to their problem. To give you guys some examples of what problems might look like, if your target audience is an investor, they might struggle with finding profitable deals because this can be tedious, difficult, and time consuming. If your target audience are short-term guests, their problem might be that hotels are expensive with few amenities and they can be really cramped. If your target audience are long-term tenants, they might have the problem that renting an entire property is becoming much more expensive and unattainable. And if your target audience is the housing market, it might be that they are struggling with the fact that there's too many properties that are uninhabitable due to their condition, so they can't be marketed. So once you have a really clear understanding of the problem, the full problem, and why your target audience are experiencing it, you can begin to tailor your product, which is the second P. So your product has to be a solution to their problem. So how is your product or service solving your target audience's problem? What we really want to do is make sure that your product is aligned to their problem. We want to make sure that we are solving their entire problem. And if we're not, how can we change and improve that? So again, going with the examples that we just started with, if your target audience are investors, we want to know if the deals that you are bringing to them as a deal sourcer, for example, are they aligning with your investors' goals? Have you understood what their problem is and how to solve it? If your target audience are guests or tenants, we want to know whether your properties are attending to your guest needs. So for example, if you're short-term guests or contractors, we need to know that your properties have enough rooms. We need to know that they have enough beds. We need to know that your properties are spacious so that they don't feel cramped. If your target audience is long-term tenants and you're running an HMO, what we need to know is that your bedrooms have locks on them, that they are secure, that there is enough space to house all of these people, that your bedrooms are big enough, these types of things. So we need to make sure that your products are solving the entire problem and that they are aligned to your audience's problem. And then finally, if your target is the housing market, then we need to make sure that your developments as a property developer are up to standard. So are you creating homes for families to live in? In that case, are they up to that standard? Are you developing commercial properties, and what is the end goal there? What we really want to make sure here is that your product is aligned. And when we do this, we'll be able to outline our business model. So a really important part of branding that people don't actually assume is a part of building your brand is outlining how exactly you're going to make money and whether your business will be profitable. Once we have your problem and product, we then move on to your purpose. So this is your why as a brand. So beyond making money, why does your brand exist? Do you have a deeper meaning? For this task, it's going to require a lot of introspection and making sure that you ask yourself the deep questions to really find out what your purpose is. Like I said, if you've read the book Start With Why, this is a really helpful way of understanding and figuring out your purpose. Some possible places to start: we've got to solve a problem. We've got to serve a community. So for example, the community that I serve is women in business. It could be to build trust or authority. And again, this might be a little bit more tailored to a personal brand as opposed to a business brand. But if you're building your personal brand and wanting to improve your career, what we want to do is to make sure that you are an authority within your niche and that people trust you. So that could be your purpose. And then finally, it could be to create opportunities. Again, one of my purposes is definitely to create opportunities for entrepreneurs like yourselves. And that could be your deeper meaning for what your brand stands for. The really important thing about having a deeper meaning is that your customers or your audience would definitely be able to see if your brand is just existing just to make money. People can see straight through that, and that will make them not want to invest in you or be loyal to you in any way. And you'll again force yourself into a game of acquisition. So what we want to make sure is that our audience knows our purpose and that they resonate with our purpose, and that will really help to build that trust between you and your audience. So when you are working through your brand purpose, these are the kinds of things that you want to make a really that you'll really want to make a note of. So we want to obviously talk about your brand purpose. So why does your brand exist beyond delivering its products or services? We want to have a really clear outline of your brand vision. So this is the bigger picture of your brand. We want to know where you are headed. This is your brand where. We want to know what it is that you want to achieve when you are setting up your brand. And then we also want a clear outline of your brand mission. So your brand mission is essentially an action-oriented vision statement. So what we want to outline here is what steps we're going to take in order to make our vision come to life. And then finally, we also want our brand values. So these are your core operating principles. Everything you do and say should be aligned with your brand values and should embody your brand values. So take the time to introspect and understand why you're serving your target audience and how you bring value to their lives. And this will really help you to answer these questions and to also create these statements for your brand. So after completing your purpose, what we want to look at is your personas. Personas are split into two sections. So we actually want to talk about your audience persona. And this is who you are serving. Oh, sorry, I thought someone was speaking. Your audience persona is who you are serving. So what we want to do is create audience profiles to really understand and know our audience. The second myth that I would like to debunk when it comes to branding is that all you need to know is your audience demographics. So your demographics are a very key part in understanding your audience. We want to know things like their age, their gender, their geographical location. This is really helpful information to know about your audience, but it's not enough to really create an audience profile and understand who you're serving so that you can solve their problems completely. What we also want to know about our audience is our psychographics. So this is the attitudes and psychological makeup of your audience. We really want to get to know and understand them. So what we want to look at when we're looking into psychographics is personality traits. We want to know your audience's habits, what they prioritize. We want to understand their lifestyle and what they're interested in, and also their opinions and beliefs. Beyond our psychographics, we also want to understand our audience behavior. So we want to know how and why your audience makes decisions. We want to know things like what they value.
Tiffany, sorry, I'm just going to pause you a sec. Can I just ask everyone to mute themselves, please, so that we don't get any background noise, because we can hear some background noise. Sorry to cut you off.
That's all right, thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you. If we can all just try and keep ourselves muted. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we also want to know about our audience behaviors. So this really helps us to understand how and why our audience make the decisions that they do. So things that we want to know about are what our audience values. We want to understand their pain points and their problems. We really want to understand their motivations. So what makes them act. And we also want to understand their fears, because fear is also one thing that makes us act as humans. We want to know what success looks like for them, what failure looks like, and we also want to understand their spending habits and buying history. When you look into your audience behavior, you want to understand their behavior in general and also their behavior in relation to your niche, your industry, and your brand. So one thing that I would really like to mention here is that when we're building our audience personas, it's really important to use actual data and research. What we don't want to do is make assumptions and guesses as to who our audience are and what they think and how they think. We really want to have strong and solid data and research to answer all of these questions that we're asking here. So some really good places to look are Google Trends, Mintel, Statista, Twitter, or any other social media platform in which your audience resides on, and also answerthepublic.com. These are all great places to do research, but I cannot stress enough that one of the best places to do research is actually just to talk to people. You're going to get the most insight into who your audience are and how they think and what they believe in when you actually sit down and have active conversations with them. So this can be through interviews, it can be through surveys and polls, it can be through a focus group. But in any way you can, try and actually talk to your audience so that you can really understand who they are and how to serve them. So once you have done that, you will create audience personas in this way. This is a really cool way to kind of just structure your personas and to have them. So what we want to do is to make sure that we have about 2 to 5 audience personas, any more than 5, and you are not niching down in the way that you need to. So we really want to have a really targeted audience and make sure that our personas align with those. This is really great if you are a direct to consumer type of business, if you're B2C, but if you're B2B, your personas may look slightly different. So instead of looking at things like gender and occupation and age, what we're probably looking at is the size of a business, we're still looking at their location, or we're looking at the niche of the business and that type of thing. We'll look less at personality traits and lifestyle interests and more at their priorities and beliefs. And then in terms of behavior, it's pretty much the same whether you are speaking to consumers or whether you are speaking to businesses. Once you have a really strong understanding of your audience personas, it's time to build your brand persona. So it's really important that you work through your audience personas first, because who you're talking to will define your brand personality. So having a really strong understanding of your audience will allow you to define your brand personality. What we want to make sure is that your brand persona is a direct reflection of who your audience believes they are. So their ideal sense of self, or who your audience aspire to be. So that's their ideal sense of self. We really want to make sure that our brand personality reflects who they see in the mirror or who they aspire to be. A brand that does this really well is Red Bull. So Red Bull's target audience is kind of the young male who is a risk taker. He very much sees himself as a daredevil and adrenaline junkie. And so what Red Bull have done is create a brand persona, a human brand persona that personifies this personality. So essentially what they do is they create extreme sports. They are very much into daredevilry, things like skydiving, motorsports, and they have embodied this extreme persona in order to align with their target audience. So when their target audience sees Red Bull doing these things, they feel that level of connection and begin to trust the brand. And that is why they buy into Red Bull as a brand. So what we want to do when we are building our brand persona is make sure that you take the time to introspect and outline how you want your brand to be perceived by its audience. What types of things do you want your audience to feel when they are in contact with your brand? And this will really help you to build out your brand personality. So what we will be looking to have once you've built your brand personas is your core desire and goals. So this is what your brand wants to achieve as a whole. We'll also be looking for personality traits. So in the same way that you've outlined personality traits for your audience, we want you to outline personality traits for your brand. Start to create a human persona for your brand. Within this, we also want to know your brand's core message. What does your brand believe? What do they want the world to see about them? And we also want a tone of voice. A really strong tone of voice kind of outlines how you're going to communicate with the world, what types of language you're going to use, and how you're going to say the things that you say. And then within this, you'll have a really strong brand persona. So onto the fifth P of branding, we are looking at positioning. So positioning is all about where your unique place is within the market. We really need to understand your competitors in order to find out where your unique place is. So what we want to do when we go into competitor analysis is to know who your competitors are. We also need to know why they are your competitors. We want to know what they do well, and we also want to know what they don't do well. So things that they might need to improve on in terms of not meeting their customers' needs. This is a really important one. And again, what we want to make sure here is when we're doing competitor analysis, we are using actual data and research and not relying on our own assumptions and biases. So we want to look at, again, places like Google Trends. We want to look at Mintel, Statista, any online reports about your competitors that will help you to understand who they are as people. We also want to create a positioning map. So your positioning map will help you to understand what makes your brand different and what makes your brand better. So what we do for creating a positioning map and understanding your differentiation is find out what attributes your audience looks for to make decisions. So in our positioning map, we will visually plot 2 key attributes that help your audience decide which brand to invest in. So this helps us to identify gaps within the market and where your brand should sit amongst your competitors in order to be different and or better. So your positioning map will also tell you your unique selling point. A quick example of what a positioning map might look like. I have taken on contractors as my ideal audience, and I've discovered that 2 of their key attributes that they use to make decisions as to which brand to go for are whether the brand has convenient properties, so they have to be in convenient locations and also have convenient amenities, and also whether their properties are big or small. I've plotted these on the XY axis, so convenient, inconvenient, big or small. And what we will then do is take all of our competitors and map them out onto this positioning map. And this will help us to understand where the gaps are within the market. And so we can see that there's quite a wide spread of competitors. We've got some with small properties that are convenient, which doesn't quite align with the needs of contractors. We've got some with small properties and inconvenient. This is just not helpful for anyone. What we want is a convenient property that is also big and spacious, that allows us to have a lot of space. And there isn't many brands that are offering this. So here we have discovered a gap in the market, and this is what the space that our brand should take up when we are positioning. So we will differentiate from other brands within the market by telling our customers that we have convenient properties that are big, and we also need to make sure that our properties do match up to this, that they are in convenient places with amenities and that they are big. And this will be our unique selling point. So that is how we will connect to our audience and differentiate and stand out from other brands within the market. So within positioning, once you've completed this, what you should have is your competitor analysis. You should also know where your brand's positioning is, and also your differentiation and unique selling point, and finally your value proposition. So that is just outlining your differentiation and unique selling point in a way that resonates with the customer. Once we've worked through all of this, we then move into planning. So this is essentially what we go through in order to build out a brand strategy. And then at the end, we create an actual plan that we can use to start to execute the brand. So with everything that we have gone through so far, what we've done is create the building blocks. We have started to build out the foundations of our brand, and now we need to start putting all of that together. So how are we going to bring your brand to life? We need to bring together all of these elements of your brand that we've gone through and start to create tangible goals to start to action your plan. The way that I like to do this with my clients is to set up OKRs. So OKRs are objectives and key results, and they're inspiring qualitative visions with concise and measurable metrics to determine success or failure. So objectives are the overarching goals that a team or person would like to accomplish. And for each objective, you should have a set of 2 to 5 key results. Your key results that we're looking for are measurable and specific. They have to be specific and time bound. And these are action steps towards achieving the objective. So what kinds of steps are you going to take to make sure that you achieve your final objective? A quick thing to note, if it doesn't have a number, it's not classed as a key result. So you have to make it specific and measurable with a number. So a quick example of what an OKR would look like. When I built out my brand strategy for Fembrand Co, one of the things that we really wanted to achieve is to build a strong community of female entrepreneurs. So this aligns with my vision and my mission as a brand. And so that is what the objective is. In order to make sure that we are reaching this objective and to measure how well we're doing, I have to have some key results. And this is how I manage my tasks and make sure that I'm actually building my brand in the way that I need to. So some of the key results that will help us to create a strong community are growing a mailing list to 100 monthly new signups, ensuring a click-through rate of our newsletters of 3% or more, and also hosting 1 networking event and 1 online workshop in each quarter. So these are the key results that I need to look out for in order to see whether I'm actually reaching my objective and building a strong community of female entrepreneurs. So now that you have all of the components of your brand, we now need to put them into a plan so we can action it. So once you've gone through your planning stages, what you need is a summary of your brand strategy. So all of the things that you know about your brand foundation. And now it's time to start building up. And in order to start building up, we really need those tangible goals and actions through OKRs that will help us to build our brand as strategically as possible and make sure that we are building strong brands. So when it's time to execute, this is when you are using everything that you know about your brand, your personality, your products, the market as a whole, your competitors and your audience. And it's now time to start building your brand expression. The really great thing about doing strategy first is that when it comes to executing and doing your brand expression, it's going to be much easier for you to get it right. So now that you have a really clear understanding of who your audience is, for example, it's going to be much easier to create brand imagery that resonates with them. Because you know what they need and what they want, you're going to be able to create a website and copy that attracts them. Because you know where they spend their time and what they pay attention to on the internet, you're going to have a really strong social media strategy and be able to create content that aligns with them and who they are. And again, you're going to be able to build a message that really resonates with them and allows them to see that you are solving the problem that they have. So my last 4 tips in terms of executing your brand and building, first of all, is that your strategy is your playbook. This is your guide, and you're going to need to refer to it in everything that you do, whether you're speaking to web developers, logo designers, copywriters, whoever you're speaking to, refer to your strategy and use this to guide your entire process. Secondly is to measure. So we've created OKRs, and it's really important to measure your key results and any key performance indicators to understand how you're performing as a brand and know if you need to make any changes or if you are doing well. It's also really important to stay agile. So we've created a plan here with your brand strategy, but there are no guarantees in business, and there's definitely no guarantees when it comes to marketing and branding. So we really need to make sure that we are staying agile. If something isn't working, we really need to pivot and make sure that we are flexible within our plan. And to kind of build on that, it's to never stay stagnant. So a lot of people assume that brand strategy is a one-time thing. Once you've created your strategy, it's done, it's dusted, we don't need to revisit it. But it's really important that as the market and your audience and technology evolves, your brand should be evolving too. And you should always be updating your strategy and making sure that you are moving and growing. Before I close out, I would just like to talk you guys through my very own framework. It's called the Ape Framework that I've created. And I find that this framework is really helpful when it comes to branding and brand strategy, but it's also a framework that you can use in terms of growing your business or in terms of personal growth as well. So APE stands for Analyze, Plan, and Execute. It's a really simple framework and it's an ongoing framework. And what we're looking at here is to make sure that we are continually growing. And that's why it's really helpful for your brand and your business, but it's also really helpful for you as a person. So when we are working through this framework, what we need to do is to analyze first and foremost, to understand your current situation and draw out any key insights for that. So we need to evaluate what's working. Once we have an analysis, we then need to make a plan to move forward. So we need to use those insights that we got from our analysis to plan our next steps and create a really actionable plan that we can put into play. This sounds really simple, but what you really need to make sure you do is to execute your plan. A lot of us like to make plans, myself included, like to make plans and sometimes forget to execute them, but execution is key here. So once you've created that plan on how to move forward, you must execute it and also measure some key results. And the journey doesn't end there, which is why it's a full circle. Once you've executed, it's really, it's really important to also analyze where you're at now once you've executed your plan and if you should make any changes and evaluate what's working and what isn't. And that is the continuous cycle that is the Ape Framework. This is very useful for building your brand, it's very useful for building your business, and it's very useful for building you as a person. That is all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be taking any questions that you guys have now.
Thank you so much for that, Tiffany. Oh my goodness me. There was just so much information in there that I thought to myself, okay, this is important. This is important. By the end of it, I'm like, okay, everything is important then. Because I was trying to pick out like a really key thing. One thing that really stood out was at the beginning of the call, the presentation, and you mentioned on there that it is easier to maintain customers you already have than it is to keep getting new customers. And that is something that we didn't learn for a long time when we started our service accommodation business. And we were constantly just like waiting for new customers to come through the doors, but then literally figuring out that the ones that we've already had come through the door could be the people that will keep our business running has been like a game changer. And that I'm like, had I had that statement, it seems obvious now, because people like Tesco and stuff wouldn't have club cards if that wasn't the case. But because they already knew that from the get-go. And so just understanding that bit, and then making sure that we are retaining those customers and ensuring that we're not going out searching again. And from that, they're now recommending us to other people, and they're bringing business to us rather than us continuously looking for business. So I thought that was a really, really powerful statement to go by. I'm just gonna see in the chat if we've got any
just
questions.
to respond, sorry, just to respond to what you had said, and you mentioned recommendations, which is actually another great way of building your brand. So if you can get those people in the door and retain them, their testimony to their friends or their recommendation to their family or whoever it is going to be so much more powerful than anything that you can tell any new customer. And that's a really important part of building your business, is social proof. And that comes from having a really strong brand and making sure that you take care of your audience. So if you can get other people to be loyal enough to be evangelists, is what we call them in branding, then you are absolutely winning, because people trust other people more than they trust brands.
Yeah, 100%, because I'm more likely to buy something that someone's been like, have you tried this? I have tried it and it worked fine for me. Even if it doesn't work for me, at least that recommendation is enough. I know that from skincare, because I'm like, oh, my skin needs a bit of this. Someone's like, oh, this has worked for me. I'm running straight to there, but I'm not even thinking that my skin is different to theirs. But that gets me to like that brand. But yeah, that's absolutely fine. One of the questions was, are we going to have the presentation available to us?
Definitely. I can share this with you guys. I'll share it with the team so that they can share it with everyone who is here. But 100% you can have access to these slides. I've tried to put as much information in there as possible, so you'll be able to follow along without me there. But if you guys have any questions, there's also links throughout the slides, so you can drop me an email or head over to the website and find my email there.
Okay. Has anyone else got any questions? Because I've got a few. So I didn't want to like start asking my questions before everyone else. So I'll let other people go, and then I'll wait for mine. So I'm just gonna head back to the chat. And there's a question from Sam. I'll let you read the question.
Okay, cool. What are the synergies between your personal brand and your business brand? Mentors in property say we should position ourselves, then communicating to people hidden behind a logo. What's your views on this? 100%. We are people very much like human connection. And so we resonate so much more when we are speaking to a person than when we are speaking to a logo, like you just said. So one thing that I always say is people kind of ask me, do I do a personal brand or do I do a business brand? Like, which one comes first? And there's no answer to that, in the sense that I feel like you should be building both in tandem with one another. The reason for this is that I can tell someone that I do branding, and I can give them my business website. They know my name. More likely than not, they're also going to search me as a person and try and find out if I'm credible, if I can do the things that I say that I do, if there's some type of paper trail of me online. Because very much so, we live in a world of social media. We live in a world, a very digital age, and people want to know who you are as a person. So if you have that solid personal brand, that's probably going to get you a lot more opportunities than your business brand is at the start. So it's really important that you are building your credibility with your personal brand, and then using your business brand to back you up. Again, things like social proof. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't. Sorry. I'm going to stop sharing my screen actually so that I can see everything at once. Does that answer your question, Tabo?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you so much. I just put something in the chat as well. May I please have 5 minutes of your time to check out my personal brand, which is Tabo_investor, and my business brand, which is Love Your Stays. When you get time, whenever, and just give me feedback, please, if that's okay.
I'll make a note of that to make sure that I do it, and then we can either jump on a call or I can drop you a message. Be happy.
Cheers. Thank you for the presentation.
No worries. Next up, we've got Carol, who says, how do we get in contact with Team Future for branding help? You can find me on all social media platforms at Tiffany_, and then you can also find my my business website where you can book a call if you would like to. All of our initial consultations are free, so we can just have a 30-minute conversation. And I talk a little bit about branding more so on Twitter, so you can find me there at Tiffany_. I've just dropped it in the chat there. Next question, we've got Mizzy, who says, great presentation, Tiffany, thank you. How can this information help me as an essay operator? Could you elaborate on the question? It's very broad, sorry.
I know, sorry. Thank you very much for the presentation to start with. That was some really, really useful information. I mean, it's clear that having a brand itself actually is really important. So I'm looking at it from the point of, we get taught that just get properties, make them generate cash flow. That's the main goal. But you're telling us the importance of a brand, which really makes sense. Now, how can I put the two together in a, I don't know if you can summarize in some way. I'm looking to make money out of these properties, but I also want to have a brand based on what you've taught us. How can this information fit into my business in the best way?
Okay, so I obviously have been in the ZPI group for a while. I listened to some of your meetings, and you guys are always telling me about how competitive property can be. So the one thing that's really important to note here is that when you acquire all of these properties, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to fill them. And I'm not saying that building a brand will guarantee that, because like I said, there's no guarantees in business, marketing, or branding. If anyone tells you that they can guarantee you results, they are lying to you. But one thing to note is that when you have all of these properties, is how are you going to fill them? And because there's so many options out there in the market, there's so many people going into property, you've got your Airbnbs, your booking.coms, your Expedias, whatever it may be. There's all of these places that people can go to find properties. And so you can kind of become lost in the sea of properties that people are looking at. And customers are now looking purely based on the property itself as opposed to a brand. But if you can take the time to fully establish your brand and make sure that you have a really strong core message that resonates with the audience that you're targeting, so whether that's your contractors, whether that's your leisure guests, whoever it may be that you're providing essays for, if you can take the time to build a really strong brand for them, then when you do put your properties on the market, it's not a case of they're looking at different properties and trying to kind of weed out all of the competition in that way. They know that your message resonates with them, they trust you and what you can provide for them, and so they aren't even going to go to the Airbnbs or the booking.coms, because they know that in our estates, for example, always comes through on their promise. They have a really strong brand message, they are always going to solve the problem, they have great customer service, whatever it may be that you've centered your brand around on, they're always going to come to you first without even looking at the competition, because you've built that really strong brand. So it's great to obviously focus on the business. Like I said, we have to have a really strong business model. We have to understand how we're going to make money, how the business is going to be profitable, because when you're building a brand, you can't forget the business side of things. We definitely need to put that into practice. But then at the same time, building your brand is going to make the business side of it much easier, because at this point, connected to a really strong group of people and they really believe in you and what you have to say, you've got retention. So now your properties are filled, not because you're on Airbnb or because you're on booking.com, it's because you have a really strong brand. I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does. It does generate more questions, but it absolutely does. Now that makes so much sense. I mean, I'm just going to take the opportunity now before you ask the next question. So I know your brand itself is actually a femme brand, and you've mentioned that you're looking to help female entrepreneurs. You've just pointed out a lot of things there that can help our business. How do we then get in touch with you, or to see if you can actually help us, or do I need to send my wife?
You need to send your wife. So under the business, we work with female-owned companies, and female-owned companies doesn't just mean that there's only one owner who's a woman. If you have a business which you have co-founders for, as long as it's at least 33% women owned, that's absolutely fine. If you don't, I'm also a freelance consultant. So I work under my business, Femme Brand Co, where we do projects. But if you just need consultancy, like for example, Tawal just asked me to look through his Instagram, I'm happy to do freelance consultations for any business that needs help. And we can talk about, your brand, your personal brand, whatever kind of branding questions that you have. I do freelance for all entrepreneurs. And if you need project assistance, then we can talk about the different ways in which you can either use my help or I can refer you to someone else.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
No worries. Is that all of your questions answered?
I'll be coming for more questions. I don't want to take this off.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Shane has asked, thank you, Tiffany. Really useful information, and your slides have been informative. Being in business, branding is important, and more so if your brand is not ethical but delivers what it promises. Not only ethical, sorry, but delivers what it promises. Oh, that wasn't a question, that was just a comment, but thank you so much for that. That was Tawa's message. And then Callista said, thank you. Great presentation. I'll be in touch. Cool. Those are all the questions that were in the chat, but does anyone have anything else that they would like to ask me? I'm happy to stick around and answer a few more questions.
I've got a quick question. And the question was based more so around the positioning part. And I know, like, you mentioned like the different places, like how you position yourself based on your competitors, but sometimes that information is not readily available, or it's not easy to find. How can I find out what my competitors are doing in certain areas? So let's say like the one that you mentioned about the amenities, that one's easy to find out because I can just Google where they are, but sort of like space wise, how they have it, how do I know that? Would I have to be sneaky and book in with them for one night just to figure out what's going on? Like, how do I find out?
It's not something that I would suggest that you do. I mean, if it comes down to it, then I can't argue with how you want to go about things. But a lot of the time, it kind of involves, for property, for example, looking through people's reviews. That's a really great way of finding out a little bit more information about what people are actually actively saying about your competitors. So I know that booking.com, Airbnb all have reviews. People can talk about the cleanliness, the space, and actually reading through the reviews. So there's obviously the ratings that people can give, but actually reading what people are actively saying and finding out a little bit more about them. And that will really help you to have an understanding from a customer point of view, how your competitors are doing and these types of things. And that will really help you to see and understand better. If it's a case of there isn't any reviews, I know that, for example, booking.com has the postcode. So maybe just looking at properties in and around the area. And trying to figure out size based on that, for example. There are definitely ways in which you can find out a lot more information about your competitors, and there's other types of things that you can look into, but that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, no, that's a really good thing that you mentioned about reviews, because the written reviews give you a lot more information than just the star rating. And so yeah, thank you very much for that.
No worries. And I think that, again, like what you mentioned with written reviews, what I was saying was talking to people gets you a lot richer information. It gets you a lot more insight into how they are feeling. And the same goes for those written reviews. You can kind of look at the star rating and different things like that, which will give you information, but it won't give you strong insight into how people are actually feeling. So it's really important to understand how people are feeling. And that's why I say talk to people. And if you can't, in that sense, kind of talking to reading those reviews, but it might be a case of, for example, if you know that there is a project in your area, creating a focus group of contractors, for example, and asking them, you know, in the properties that you've stayed in this area, how did you find them? How was the space? How was the amenities? Was it convenient for you? And just asking those types of questions. So you're not actually actively going out to properties or booking nights and spending money doing that, but you're still getting that really strong insight from people who have been in those properties and may not have shared everything on review sites. I know, for example, with contractors, they probably deal with a third party, so they might not even leave reviews. So just having those conversations, focus groups are great as well.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
No worries. Does anyone have any other questions?
I really strongly suggest you ask your questions, guys. And it doesn't have to be necessarily property related, but it's gone.
Yeah, like Charlene said, I'm happy to answer.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Shelly.
Hi. I just want to ask about this competition thing. We can have your essay, but so nice, so beautiful, and you can figure yourself, this is nice, and you can price up your money, not competing with other people, but just to price it up when according to your property is nice. Is it a big deal or it's a breaking deal?
Do you mean that if you are to price based not on your competition, but price based on what you believe the quality? Yeah. So again, this is very much about creating a really strong brand. So you can't just kind of launch your website, launch your properties and say, we are charging thousands of pounds for this property every night because it looks nice, because no one's really going to buy into that. It's about making sure that you've created that strong brand so people have trust in you and know that you can deliver above and beyond, that when they invest £1,000 a night into your property, that they are going to receive excellent care, that they are going to have around the clock service, whatever it is that you are offering to justify that price. So people need to see the value in that price. If they just see a normal property like the other ones that's slightly nicer, has better furniture, then it doesn't quite make sense for them to spend that amount of money. But if you can justify the value and tell them what they will be receiving and how you are solving their problem and going above and beyond to be of value to them in their lives, that's when you can begin to charge those premium prices. So we pay premium for things that we believe in, for things that we see the value in, whether that is seeing the value in looking more prestigious than other people, and that's why we pay more money for things, then that's absolutely fine. Or whether that is we see that this company is going above and beyond to make sure that I'm comfortable, to make sure that I'm taken care of, and that's why I'm going to invest in it. We just need to make sure that we are being valuable to the customer. And in order to be valuable to them, you need to understand what value means to them as people. You need to know what exactly it is that they're looking for and what they are willing to pay a premium for in order for you to charge those prices. And once you have that understanding and you've built that level of trust, that's when you can begin to start to charge those prices, and people won't even blink an eyelid because they know that they can trust you to deliver on your promise. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Yes.
No worries, Lily. Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions?
Tiffany?
Yes.
Thank you very much for actually coming to this, the ZPI part and sharing your information. But do you actually have any other platform that you do these talks on where we can actually get more information or listen to more stuff?
Yes, so we are currently working on putting together different types of workshops that we can give to you guys. So we want to make sure that our workshops, they'll be run kind of like this session where we give you information. We also create workbooks for you guys to download and to be working along with us whilst we're giving you this information. Our first one will actually be on personal branding. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, I'll be happy to pass on the information to the ZPI team so that they can find you. And like we said, one of our OKRs is to make sure that we are hosting these workshops regularly. So our workshops probably will run on a bi-monthly schedule. And again, that will be up on our website, but I can give you guys the information, and we will make sure that we are kind of giving you guys all the information that you need to build different aspects of your brand, and growing as a business brand or as a personal brand. But that's definitely something that we are currently working on, and it will be up and running really, really soon, hopefully within the next month or so. So yeah, I can definitely give you information on that. In terms of actually building your brand, we do have a workbook that I can give you guys access to. Again, I can share the link with you. And it's called How to Build a Killer Brand Strategy. And it's a workbook that you can download on your laptop. It's $9.99 for the workbook. And that allows you to just go through all of the processes that we've talked about today. It's structured slightly differently in terms of there isn't 6 Ps, but we are still covering all of the same information. And this will help you to start to have all of these components for building your brand strategy and going into execution. So I can again share the link with that. Share the link for that with your group chat for you guys, and you can check that out if that's something that you would be interested in.
Thank you so much. That's absolutely brilliant. And I've actually started working through that workbook, and it is very, very useful. There's certain things that you don't actually realize you're not doing up until you remind you oh, okay. And one of them, a key one, was you speaking to people, because there's so many things that I assumed based on my own understanding. But then when you actually seek out and see what people are actually, their pain points per se, what their pain points are, the ones that you're trying to solve, they might be actually slightly different to what it is that you're offering. And sort of from a property point of view, when we started out, we were only looking at apartments just because that was what was taught to us. But then when we started speaking to our target audience, apartments sometimes don't work because of where they're situated. They don't have parking and things like that. And it turns out that we're accumulating all this stuff based on our understanding of what a good serviced accommodation would be. But then after speaking to our target audience, they wanted somewhere where it was spacious, somewhere where it was quiet, somewhere where they could sleep quite a few people, whereas apartments are normally 1 to 2 bedrooms and not that spacious. So a 4 or 5 bedroom house was more ideal for our target audience, plus having the space to park their vans and things like that. So that one was really oh, what duh, obviously it makes sense now, but then only after speaking to them that is actually brought to the forefront, and it makes more sense in that respect. So thank you so much for that. And I don't see any further questions that have been asked on the group. So thank you so much, guys, for interacting, because it was quite an interactive presentation. So thank you so much for that. And also Tiffany mentioned on the presentation that there is a book club. And the very first book that we read was Start With Why, and she referred to it quite a bit in the presentation, which I think is really, really important. And in that book club, we read so many books, not necessarily just property related. It's about personal development and or property and other businesses that people may be embarking in. And we meet up every second Friday of the month. And it's really, really useful. I've been to all of them so far, and oh my goodness me, it gets heated. especially the last one got heated, some great debates. It was juicy, it was fun. I can't wait for next Friday. This is my Friday night gig that I cannot wait for. So if you would like more information regarding that, please don't hesitate to contact either myself or Muzzy, and we'll be able to give you more information regarding that. And also we've got the premium group for anyone who's looking to kind of upscale their business and speak to like-minded people who may be going through certain things that will help you accelerate your business. Like, we have a weekly meeting on a Sunday, and on that weekly meeting we talk about our challenges and our successes, and it's so helpful to learn from other people. So people say that you learn from mistake, but you don't have to learn from your own mistakes. You can learn from other people's mistakes so you don't make them. So that's really a good starting point as well. If you're interested in that too, please do reach out to either myself, Muzzy, or Tabo, and they'll be able to give you that information. And I know that there's so many people on here who are already in the premium group, and they will be able to give you more information and tell you how amazing it is. I'm sure Shelley will let you know how much fun we have on a Sunday evening, playing Muga, Charlie, Candy, and yeah, it's so useful. But if there is no further questions, I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I will stop the recording now, and I will allow people to come off mute and say hi and bye.
I just wanted to say a massive thank you to, just a massive thank you to the ZPI team for having me today. It's been great to interact with you guys. Thank you again for being really interactive in the session. If you have any questions, I'm actually on the group chat, so you can find my number there. And you can find me on socials as well. I'll be happy to interact with you guys and answer any questions. But thank you so much for being here and for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And